I'm Mario Martinez Jr., CEO and founder of Vengreso, and we are the creators of FlyMessage.io, the free personal writing assistant and text expander application. On each episode of this podcast, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you grow your sales numbers at scale. So, get your pen and paper or iPad and keyboard and start taking notes as you're now listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. And I'm stoked because I've got my friends from Salesforce on this podcast. You are going to enjoy it. I've got Mr. Ketan Karkhanis. He is the EVP and General Manager of Sales Cloud. Yes, I brought a sales leader from Salesforce who is overseeing all of sales. Ketan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It sounds like we're going to have a lot of fun today.
That's the goal. That is the goal, to give the listeners a lot of great information and a lot of fun and hear us laughing.
So to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome, my friend. I'm happy to have you, and it's been a long time coming, and it's finally got your schedule aligned with mine, so it all works out perfectly. Do me a favor, tell us a little bit about yourself. We obviously know who Salesforce is, but your background in terms of rising as a sales leader at Salesforce.
Yeah, no, thank you. I am a boomerang in Salesforce. So I was in Salesforce from 2010 through 2019. All the while doing a lot of product technology, all that work. I kind of left Salesforce, did a startup in supply chain, had a good exit on that, and I came back to run Sales Cloud at Salesforce. Yeah, I'm based in the Bay Area, so if you guys ever want to go have a drink or coffee, just hit me up. Happy to have a great conversation. And in Salesforce, I'm the general manager and EVP of product and technology for Sales Cloud. Which is, as you know, the #1 CRM for sales. I am born in India. I spent my first 25 years in India, started my life as a coder. I also dabbled in silicon graphics machines, if anybody remembers SGI.
I do remember. In fact, they were one of my customers in my early days.
Is that right?
Yes, SGI. We had them as a big time customer.
All right. Well, I probably brought back memories for some of your other viewers and listeners also. But they were beautiful. That's how I got started. I came to the US, worked at Cisco Systems, and then came to Salesforce. That's me in a nutshell.
Love it. And Sales Cloud, for those people who don't know what Sales Cloud is, can you just kind of talk about what is Sales Cloud from Salesforce?
Yeah. So, Sales Cloud is the cloud that started cloud. That's the best way to start that answer, because it is back in the early days of cloud, when Mark Parker and team started Salesforce, they started with Sales Cloud. The whole premise is giving sales professionals the technology platform to drive their sales execution. And there is you can look at it from a Gartner category definition. Gartner calls it Salesforce automation. There are various different dimensions to it, but it is providing the technology platform that allows companies to grow efficiently. It allows companies to connect with their customers in a whole new way. It is about managing your lead to cash process workflow on a single unified platform. And we've been doing this for, more than 20 years, Mario. Well, I have not been here for 20 years, but everybody before me. And we have been the leader in the segment for more than 16 years in a row. In fact, this year we got the leadership from Gartner again for the 16th year in a row. So we are very privileged with the love and the trust our customers have put in us. Whether it's large organizations like AT&T and IBM, to small SMB companies like, Flock Safety with 10, 20 people. They all have one thing in common, is they have great products and they have great and they want to connect with customers in a whole new way. And Sales Cloud helps you do that.
I love it. Well, I've got a special affinity and love for Salesforce.
Yes.
I think we were talking about this in the pregame. And for those of you that don't know, I'm sure all my listeners have heard this before, but those of you that are new and those of you that don't remember, if you think back in 2018, Salesforce produced a movie, the first sales documentary called The Story of Sales. And they selected 20 sales influencers. And I was one of those 20 sales influencers, Ketan. And that actually was what they say as they put the nail in the coffin. That was what put the nail in the coffin as a thought leader and as a sales influencer out in the marketplace, because Salesforce asked me to be part of the movie. And that was a phenomenal privilege.
Well, we're glad we could be part of your journey back then.
Absolutely. And I still use it to this very day. In fact, in my bio, it says one of 20 sales influencers select to be part of the story of sales. And a funny story is back in 2019, there was the, what was it called? What is the keynote that Mark Benioff gives at the very beginning of Dreamforce?
Yeah, it's our opening keynote.
The opening keynote. Okay, well, let's call it the opening keynote because that's what it is. Nothing special. Opening keynote. There we go.
No, I mean, the only special, I don't know if it's special, but like, there's like 30,000 people in the room. There are probably 1 million watching online. So yeah, I mean, it could be called special.
Well, I meant as in the name, as nothing special. It's the opening keynote. That's so simple. I should have thought of that. My apologies. All right, so the opening keynote. And there was a segment that they played the video. Now, I was not there. Sorry, I was there, but I was not watching. I was actually, I don't know where I was. I was out and about, and I started getting all these text messages, and everybody was like, "Bro, I see you on video." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" They're like, "Mark Benioff says, now let's watch this clip." And it was like, boom! It was like Mario right there. And my opening line says, "Sales is the art of helping." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm famous." So anyways, my special love for Salesforce, gotta love you guys. But I always like to ask this opening question of all my guests. It's a very special question, and I'm looking for something kind of juicy. And that is, tell us something nobody knows about you, even if they're looking at any or all of your social profiles.
Oh, well, well, I'm not very active on social profiles, but maybe that's something I should be focused on. No, I'll tell you one thing. I'm a great cook. I'm really a good cook, and I love it. I love cooking for my family. I'm a simple guy. The best time is Friday evenings for me. That's when I usually do something new. And that something new is usually inspired by random browsing on YouTube for recipes. I don't know if you do that, right? Just kind of type a few words and enter the rat hole of the feed. And you stumble on a recipe somewhere and you're like, that sounds interesting. So yeah, that's what I love to do. Nothing too juicy. I wish I had something more juicy, but no, and I don't really talk much about it except today. I mean, it's one of those things for between me and my family. That's it.
Okay. So let's tease this out.
Yeah.
Vegetarian with meats, style, culture.
Yeah,
Is there anything that you love the most?
I would say dead and cooked. Right.
Okay, we'll take the dead and cooked. All right.
No, because have you explored YouTube for recipes? Shit gets wild out there. It could you land on some recipes. You're like, really? I'm not touching that. No, but jokes apart. No, it's actually the fun of it is just learning about that different kinds of the other day I made a Pakistani dish. I'm not from Pakistan, but I stumbled on it. It looked really great. I'm like, dude, I want to go make that. Some weeks ago, I had never made tiramisu before. I'm like, I want to go make tiramisu. It's like whatever. I almost believe that a lot of joys in the life can be found if you let serendipity lead the way.
I love it. That's fantastic. Your wife, I'm sure, and your kids appreciate that. So
they don't appreciate when I travel most of the week.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then you come back home, and now Dad's home.
Something
well,
like that.
Funny that you mentioned that. Just this past week, I hadn't smoked in a long time.
What?
And so I decided to smoke some baby back ribs, and I put it into the smoker and I tried it a new way. And I
Mm.
got to tell you, oh my God, they were mouth-watering, delicious, fall off the bone. And both my sons said, um, Mom, I hope it's okay, but I think Dad's ribs beat yours. So she said, without getting offended, she goes, "Oh, I'm okay with you saying that. I don't have to be the best. It just means
No,
that he has to now smoke tomorrow night."
exactly. Be careful when you want that award because, hey, wow.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, let's get down to business here. I want to spend some time talking about just a number of things that are impacting us, the economic landscape, how the selling profession has changed. And of course, because you're doing a lot and leading a lot with the product development, especially with the Sales Cloud, you're very intimately involved in what's happening. So,
Mhm.
love to hear your approach to selling and how the profession has evolved since the pandemic. Things like the biggest shifts in buyer behavior,
Mhm.
and how sales teams have had to adjust to some of those shifts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could do the whole show on this one question, Mario. I'll tell you a couple of things that just come up every time I'm sitting down with customers or prospects or doing events and conferences and all that kind of stuff. Number one, you have to always start with your customer, your buyer. And I'll tell you, the most fundamental shift is the shift in buyer behavior and buyer expectations. And I'll give you two concrete examples. Number one is a data point. I was reading a statistic, I think so, Gartner or something. I'm probably Gartner. I might be misquoting the source. 52% of B2B buyers today are millennials. Think about it. Now you start thinking about how millennials do buying or purchasing and what profound impact that might have on their B2B buying, what they do in their jobs. Number two, and we'll come back to this point, the first point in a bit. Number two is, sales has always been, how do I say this? Like a contact sport, right? You go out, you meet people, you shake hands, you have dinners, you make presentations, you're out there walking the hallway, you're out there pounding the sidewalk, if you may, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. And then, unfortunately, the pandemic happened. And a lot of things started changing much faster than they would have ever organically. What was essentially a contact sport, what essentially was sitting across the table and building that deep relationship, is now constrained to a 2-inch by 2-inch Zoom window or a Teams window or a Google Meet window, whatever you use. Uh, Seems like a simple change, but can you imagine the profound impact it has on sellers? The insights they would glean by walking hallways, they don't get that anymore. The relationships they would build sitting in the lobby or hanging around in the customer location, that's much harder to do. The digital awareness and the digital savvy that they need to navigate this new all digital world, that's new. Now, some, it's easy to embrace that change. For some, it's harder. But for all of them, it is a change. And that is really important for us to understand. So that's why, when I talk to sales leaders, one of the top things they tell me is, we need you to help us raise the game of our team. I need to raise the game of my team, not because they are bad sellers, they're great sellers. But how do you have this great seller operating in this new paradigm of selling? So those are like two big shifts that I see. And the third shift, and I'll stop there, Mario, is we recently, a key part of Salesforce is our, 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 our basic premise that, or at least my basic premise that all our best ideas are not ours. They come from our customers. So I'm always listening. I've got an easy job. Go talk to customers, write down what they're saying, and come build it into the product. It's kind of simple. And all of them, we did a state of the sales survey. We interviewed more than 8,400 sellers worldwide. 84, or sorry, I beg your pardon, 94% of sales leaders told us that they are just burdened with this proliferation of tech solutions in the sales world. On an average, a sales rep is using 7 to 8 different point solutions. And this also accelerated in the pandemic phase. So you've got technology that's burdening you, you've got buyer behavior that's changing, and you've got a workforce that now needs to be ready for the next decade, which is digital first, AI first. We should talk about GPT in a minute. And you have to put all that together. And that's what we are focused on. Those are the changes I see, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
No doubt. I think one of the biggest challenges that you mentioned out of those three is the B2B buyer is now 52% millennials. And I believe that is actually accurate from Gartner as well, just FYI. And I've seen that actually multiple times.
Correct.
Interestingly, the question is how does that change the selling process? And that's what I'm curious about what your thoughts are, because I know what we've seen as the impact, not just to us, but formerly when Vengreso was a sales prospecting training company, now a software as a service company with FlyMessage. We knew exactly what was going on and how this impact was changing, especially for those sellers that were the 45 and older, our age group, and how we've always grown to sell and trained to sell, and still to this day try to force. What I just had happen yesterday is a great example where someone said to me, yes, we can do this. Why don't we go ahead and schedule a call? And so I said, do we need to schedule a call, or can you deliver me the information that I'm looking for? Which is, number one, I said, can you do this? Number two, I said, how do you do it? And number three, I said, how much does that cost? Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Very prescriptive, very, very clean. And then he said, yes, we can. Let's arrange a call so that I can go through it with you and have a discussion. But I don't want a call.
Nope.
I don't have time for another call. Do you know how many calls I have in my day? And it was interesting because it was in this case, it was a banking institution. And as a result of the whole SVB situation, we immediately said we need to implement being able to ensure that our bank that we work with can take our money and spread it across as part of a part of the normal process and spread it across multiple banks to ensure that it's FDIC insured. So all I needed to know was, can you do it? What are the qualifications? And how much does it cost to be able to have that service?
Right.
And we needed to have a 30-minute conversation. So his next reply was, yes, but it'd be better if we actually talk about this over the phone so I can go through some of the requirements that I need to decipher to determine if you qualify. And I said, can you now document those qualifications? Because I don't have time for a call. Just tell me, what are the 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever, I don't care what it is. Just document it.
Yeah.
And so I'm acting like a millennial in terms of not wanting to talk face to face. And that's challenging this particular seller who's trying to deliver a product or a service, and arguably is probably some sort of charge to have this service, right? But we're seeing that a lot, not just in our buying and selling process, but of course across different organizations. So I'd love your feedback on that one as well.
You hit it perfectly. And what you kind of said is very profound. Millennials make us think about it that way, but you know what? Everybody prefers things differently now. That is an important point. So it's not just for millennials or whatever. It's like the buying behavior, the psyche is changing. The idea of a sales process is not about selling anymore. It's about giving a guide path to the buyer to arrive at the next stage of the sale on their own. And at some point, so, it's not necessarily a sales led, but it's a sales assist. It's not necessarily selling. To your point, it is coaching. It is, and so I'll give you two concrete examples. One of the things we do in our product is enable self-service buying for B2B. And the idea is, well, if you're selling, let's take simple things, pipes, and you're selling pipes to customers. For repeat orders, why do you need a whole sales process? The buyer now wants to go online. Your website needs to be your number one sales rep and needs to create that guide path for the buyer to configure, to make changes, to apply discounts if needed, and go ahead with the purchase. But even if it's not a repeat customer, Buyers are now expecting information to be served to them so that they do their own evaluation before they actually get on a call or get in a room with you. A lot of the time, and this is one thing we all need to acknowledge, a lot of the time they have already done all the research they needed. They already have a lot of the information, and they're looking for you to help them tie it to how will that purchase help them bring more value to the problem or whatever they're trying to do. So I think so. What we say in Salesforce is activate growth across all channels. Um, and the third, direct, indirect, and self-service. But more importantly, there's one more thing which I feel is highly valuable to sales leaders. One of the things every sales leader worries about, I'm sure you think about it, is how do I increase my selling capacity without increasing my expense? Pretty simple. Like if only I could hire 10,000 sales reps tomorrow, right? I can't really do that. But I do have to show 20% growth. I do have to show 30% growth. Uh, and if you peel it back, and if you really look and measure, you will find that more than 50% of a seller's time is spent on non-selling activities. Now you could automate them and make them self-service. And suddenly you have added capacity by ensuring your top reps are not spending time just sending proposal, here's a link to our demo, no. So I think so it's got a direct connection to not only growth, but also reduction of your operating expense. So one of the key capabilities we have is our sales bot. Companies have web to lead forms, right? Mario, you've seen those, right? You come, you fill up the web to lead form, and then it goes into a MQL database somewhere.
Exactly.
And then MQL, somebody does something and it becomes an SQL later. It's such a lot of friction in that process. Come on, you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then sales is always saying, I don't have enough MQLs. And the marketing team is always saying, well, I sent you 1,000 leads last month. What did you do with them? We've all seen that movie many, many times, right? The problem is not the people. The problem is the process and the technology. Imagine replacing a static, monolithic web to lead form with a personalized chatbot that is giving contextually relevant information to your visitor on your website. Now your website starts becoming a sales rep. In your sales bot, now you say, would you like to see the demo? And you're connecting them to the digital version of the demo. Would you like to see our case study? And here's the case study. And at some point, do you want to buy? And you can connect them to your commerce workflow. Or they might say, no, I need a rep to assist me. And you can digitally set up that meeting. You've probably saved days out of what a sales rep would have done. So I think so we have to keep tying it back to top line and bottom line. And that's the advantage of this is happening. The question is not whether this is happening or not, it's happening. The question is how soon are you going to embrace it?
I love the statement, make your website your best salesperson.
Correct.
I totally agree with that. One of the biggest frustrations that I have as a B2B buyer is I go to a website and it has a thing right at the top says pricing. And you click on the pricing page and then it shows you these plans. And right at the plans, it says, click here to get your custom quote. It was like, come on. Like, I want the information and to be able to have it at my fingertips to be able to make decisions. It's so frustrating to be able to see that. Now, in some cases I may understand it, but other cases, like, we got to give more to our buyers. And
I mean, if you're configuring a power plant, yes, sure.
Exactly.
But otherwise, most of the things you should be able to do it online.
Exactly correct. I'm with you on that one. Well, let's talk about some of the economic headwinds.
Right.
Today's economic landscape is most certainly impacting sales organizations.
Right.
I believe that there is a need to optimize sales operations, sales enablement to accelerate growth despite these economic headwinds. First, do you agree? And if so, how can they be optimized to accelerate growth?
I do agree with you, but I would flip the order. I would first start with enablement because it goes back to the point we made at the beginning, is raising the game of your team. Every leader knows they're only as good as their team. And every sales team knows that very well. And I'll tell you, enablement has undergone a massive, it has to undergo a massive transformation, because I fundament, and I apologize to anybody I might be offending, but look, I think so it's broken. And I'll tell you why. You know how how people generally think about enablement? They think about content, right? Which is great. I agree. But it's like we take our sellers, we say, go to this classroom, go through this content, take this quiz or take this certification, and now you're enabled. But it's like we almost handle them like elementary school, like you have to go to school and you have to. Is that how grown-ups learn? Right? Or is that how athletes learn? Like imagine, Mario, you're running, you're the coach of a football team. Are you going to coach them football on the field? Or are you going to take them in a classroom and show a projector video for 20 hours? You might show the video for 1 hour, but the remaining 10 hours, you're going to go out on the field, right?
Exactly.
And you're going to coach them. You're going to coach them when they are throwing the ball. You're going to tell them what's going to help them. So the idea of enablement, which is disconnected from sales execution workflow, has, I think so, it has outlived its utility. That's why our approach to enable has been outcome focused. If you're the leader, and one of the outcomes you want to achieve this year is increase deal sizes, or let's say reduce cycle time, then how do you drive enablement that's in context of the workflow that the sales reps are? So imagine I'm working on an opportunity and the enablement is coming to me as if the coach is standing on the sidelines telling me, swing harder or something like that, right? I'm simplifying to make the broader point, is bringing enablement in context and tying it to outcomes. I think so is a big change. And that's why we call it outcome-based enablement. But we are seeing customers ask for this, because the second question they ask is, I'm doing all this enablement, is it even moving the needle? How do I measure it? How do I measure enablement? With outcome-based enablement, and that's a very different. Use any product you want. Honestly, there are many products that can help you do this. The principle and the methodology is what I'm trying to share here, is outcome-based enablement. If you can't connect your enablement program to the outcome, you don't know whether you're throwing good money at the right problem. Second point you mentioned is sales operations. I think so that I think so it's very exciting times to be in sales ops. I always think of staying on the sports analogy, which we're just talking about, Mario, you being the head coach and you teaching football. Sales operations is like your defensive and offensive coordinator, right? They're helping you coordinate your team. They're helping you design the structure of your team, and helping you run programs, and helping you get data and analyze that data and measure that data and give you insights from that data. I use the word data at least 20 times, I guess. But what I'm trying to say is it's about being data driven. It's been data first. And so sales operations now is becoming, well, I don't know. I always thought of it as, and I'm not telling like an industry term, but I always think of sales operations as growth operations. I think of it as growth ops. We can maybe come up with a new term on your show, Mario. And then we can say, well, we came up with this out here. But I feel like both these, it's the troika of sales reps, it's the troika of ops and your buyer, and you're connecting all of that.
Totally agree with you on some of these insights that you've provided here. And the challenge that I see, to be honest with you, Ketan, is when a company is experiencing economic headwinds that is slowing down growth, the first organizations that are usually looked at to be cut are the enablement and the operations teams. And then, of course, the sales folks, that especially those that are underperforming, that's an easy, an easy win as well. And so it's quite disturbing to hear what you're saying which is totally valid, totally true. These enablement functions that are required to help level up our teams in these times as economic headwinds that we're facing. But yet, the first place that we think of cutting is the enablement organizations or the operations organizations. And it's quite sad how we think this way as executive leaders that are overseeing these organizations. Like, I would cut out all of my accounts receivable and accounts payable folks and outsource that, right? Put it overseas, then cut my enablement organization. By the way, I'm not focusing on finance just because I want to. I'm just using it as an example to all my finance folks listening in, right? So it's just very sad to think about to think that those are some of the challenges that we're seeing right now happening.
Right. No, but there's also, why we go there, because people have not really connected the value of that organization to the outcome they want to achieve.
Amen.
Goes back to the outcome focused enablement methodology that I was talking about. And look, economic headwinds is happening. But we can't control things out of our control. We can't control what's going to happen. We could if we want, not really interest rates. Like, I don't think so. I can really change what the interest rate is going to be tomorrow. Neither can you. Neither do I want to have that kind of a power. Can you imagine how stressful that job would be? Like, seriously, one decision impacts 400 million people right away. I'm like, whoa.
Exactly. I'm going to take down one of the largest world powers.
Whoa. But I mean, I tried to make light of a moment, but the fact of the matter is, what you control is how do you get your teams ready to face whatever it may come. Yes, you're going to need to make adjustments, but what adjustments you make need to get ready for the future versus reacting to the past. And I think so that is an important point. If you think about it, is the change I'm making helping me get ready for the future, or am I just reacting to what happened yesterday? And when you look at it from that perspective, you will arrive at the same conclusion I am, which is like, I got to raise the game of my team. I got to invest in data. I got to simplify my processes, and I got to go faster. Productivity follows.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to transition before we run out of time, because speaking of enablement and speaking of making things go faster and making reps and sales organizations more productive,
right?
There's a tremendous amount of hype going on around, generative AI. And recently, actually, Salesforce introduced the Einstein GPT. In fact, it was a month ago or so.
Yeah, at Trailhead DX just a month ago.
Yeah. And so I'm very curious, how will Einstein GPT impact the sales process for sales teams? What's your prediction?
Well, number one, let's start with the simple, right? I think so. The simple also is really important. How many emails do you think a sales rep sends every day? Just average, ballpark, whatever, pick a number.
If you're prospecting, I'd say up to 100. If you're doing a global account management, maybe like 30, 50, 40.
Okay, 30, 40. How about we go with 40? We'll go just go.
Fair.
Probably takes you, let's assume you are like a Pulitzer winning writer, like you're really great at writing, which nobody is, but whatever. You're spending probably 5-10 minutes an email. You're kind of churning through it. Some might take a minute, some might take 20 minutes.
Yeah, anywhere between 1 to 15 minutes is the average amount of time. So take it in the middle, 7 minutes per email.
7 minutes. 7 into 30, that's 210 minutes. What if I could tell you you can do all of that in 2 minutes?
Expand.
Okay. So let's say you're writing an email you're a prospect, you're asking for an introduction, right? An introductory call, you're prospecting. With Einstein GPT, you can provide the prompt, which is introduction. So it's a prompt. You're giving a prompt, introduce. 2, Einstein GPT is connected to your CRM and has context on the lead, the account, the industry they are in, the country they are in, you got the whole. That's the whole power of Salesforce, right? The complete view of your customer. Einstein GPT has LLMs, which is the large language model, aka generative AI. And now it's going to type the whole email for you. And you, as the human in control, right? Because you've got the power, you can decide whether you want to send it or you want to edit slightly. So what if you had an assistant who wrote all your emails for you, and you were simply saying yes, no, good, bad, whatever? That's the power of generation. The word generative stands for generating content for you based on artificial intelligence algorithms. And I think so that's profound. I'll tell you, in Salesforce, more than 52 million emails are sent every day out of Sales Cloud. That's a lot of emails, right? So GPT is going to completely free up the time and make that rep that much more productive. Number two, I'm sure you've heard of this, Mario. They say that good sales reps spend 70% of their time preparing and researching, or maybe somebody had said 90%. One can argue 70, 90. It's just a lot of time. What if you had a research assistant? Let's say you've got the account, which is, and you're typing up the account and you're researching the account and you're finding out who are the decision makers, what were the latest information, what are their competition, and you're getting to know your customer in a whole new way. Now, rather than doing all that manually by Googling or researching or calling or asking, phoning a friend, if you may, doing all those things, you can cut down your research time using GPT Einstein Assistant to drive that. Number three, and I can keep going on and on. Number three, so the email part, we are actually, it's not even the hype. It's going to start coming out in June in Sales Cloud. So you're going to see that. But we're going to continue. Number three is, let's say you want to build a report of how your team is performing. Today you probably need to know the reporting names and columns and what kind of report you want to build and all that. What if Einstein could build that report for you and all you're saying is, what's my revenue in Northeast? And you've got the report in front of you. This is not sci-fi. This is actually what LLMs do. We are very excited about bringing all of this to the market. And I'm excited about the biggest thing that excites me about GPT or LLMs in general, large language models, is the direct and profound productivity multiplier it's going to be on your sales team. That is why we are so passionate about bringing that to market.
So I've learned a new term, never heard of that before. LLMs, is that what it is? Large language models?
Correct. So the underlying AI terminology is LLM, which is large language models. These are special kind of machine learning models that basically are trained to decipher and get trained on large textual information available everywhere and derive insights and then do questions around it.
Very interesting.
Wow.
Well, clearly, you guys are doing some great stuff that obviously will be a benefit. I would love for something to be in my inbox that actually is smart enough to be able to read it and reply, so I don't have to think about every single thing that I get. But I would imagine that a lot of sales organizations, maybe even leaders, maybe even reps, would be hesitant to use some of these generative AI tools like Einstein GPT, yeah? And they're complicated to implement. Maybe it's they feel like they're taking the power out and control out of the thinking that goes into this. What would you say to someone who who may be hesitant to use these types of tools?
I mean, one, I would say they're quite justified in having those hesitations. In fact, you should have those hesitations because that's where companies such as Salesforce, we focus on the most important thing for us as a company is trust. And that's our number one value. If you go to salesforce.com, you will see trust as our number one value. With trust as a principle, the way we are designing Einstein GPT is to always have the human in the loop. Is for you will always be the person. So Einstein GPT is not just going to do it. It's going to help you do it, save you, 50, 60% of your time. And then you are still going to be the boss, right? You're going to say, yeah, send it or don't send it, whatever. Number two item, which is very important to understand, is it sounds really high tech and all that, but the work we are putting into it is how do we democratize this and simplify this for the SMB, for a company that has only 2 sales reps. Because it's not just about companies that have an infinite amount of, well, nobody has an infinite amount of IT budget, but some people have a bigger IT budget. So I'll give you a very simple example. Think about it this way. 20, 25 years ago, the word GPS was very common. People used to buy a GPS device like TomTom or something. I don't know if you know those from back those days, right? And we used to keep it in our car or like, and it was kind of complicated to use, like, this small.
Absolutely. Little small screens trying to type in stuff. Yeah.
Like, where am I going? And GPS, wow, satellite technology. How cool is that, right? But then that technology became democratized. And today, when you use the Maps feature on your phone, how many people do you think even know that GPS is powering it?
That GPS is what?
The GPS is powering that Maps app.
Oh, I don't even think people think about it.
That's the point. Technology has to be simplified such that it's focused on the outcome, helping you get where you want to be, versus getting lost in the jargon. Now I'm actually feeling terrible about using the word LLM, well, the 4th time, because because the point is, our focus is trusted technology, which is only focused on helping you achieve your outcome. And I feel at the same time, and I'll conclude on this last point, is look, we are also extremely humble with a beginner's mind. Maybe we don't have all the answers. And that's why we are deeply listening, we are deeply experimenting, and we are always going to be iterating till we get it right. So I think so it's important to have that humility when you're approaching something as big as generative technologies.
Yeah, love it. Well, we're running out of time here, but I have one last question for you before, well, actually I have a couple last questions, but this one on this topic here of generative, there we go, got it out, AI. The hype is so high, so strong, and then everybody's coming out, AI, that, I got the AI. So how quickly do you think sales organizations can see the benefits of generative AI?
I can speak about Salesforce and how soon we are bringing everything to market. I think so. It's just a matter of a few months that we are going to have our, technology out there for people to play with, learn, and adopt. At the same time, we're going to keep iterating fast. I think so. This is going to be one of our biggest dream forces ever. So Mario, you should come. We'll try and shoot one more film with you. It'll be fun. I look forward to this coming Dreamforce. I think so. It's going to be pretty epic.
I'm excited for it as well. And we shall see what really new sexy stuff that you guys will be able to show off there at Dreamforce. Very exciting. Well, Ketan, I appreciate so much you being on talking about some of these really important topics here today. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way? Is it LinkedIn, email, Twitter? What's the best way?
Oh, just LinkedIn me. I'm happy to give you my email, which you can attach to the blog or however you publish this. Send me an email. I may not be very social on social media, but I'm a very social guy. So I'm happy to engage with you. More importantly, honestly, look, it's really important to build a community of sales professionals worldwide. So I'll leave your viewers with one last thing. April 5th, next week, Mario. This is happening. Sales Blazer.
Sales Blazer.
We are going to launch the largest community of sales professionals in the world. And we are going to be focused on providing them the community, the best practices, the excellence, and even launch a certification. So I think so. We want to hear from all of you, and I would be absolutely honored if you reach out.
Love it. So if you want to reach out on LinkedIn, Ketan's first name, Ketan, last name, Karkhanis, Karkhanis. And when you reach out on LinkedIn, please make sure you send a personalized connection request and say, I heard you on the Modern Selling Podcast. I've got one final question for you, and we're going to move on. And that is your all-time favorite movie. What is it?
Oh, wow. All-time favorite. I will go with The Hunt for the Red October.
I love that movie with Sean Connery. Isn't that with Sean Connery?
One more ping, Vasily. One more ping. That's what I want.
The
I
Hunt for
want
Red
one
October.
more deal.
I love it. The Hunt for Red October. There it is. For all of you listening in right now, hey, don't turn that dial just quite yet. Listen to this important message right now. Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Oh, and don't forget, if you'd like to save 20 hours or more in a month and increase your productivity, go right now and download Fly Message, that's flymsg.io for free. It's your free text expander and personal writing assistant. Hey, thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.